Whoa, that was quick! You're back with Caricarz.com, and today you can call me Mr. Grey because I finally get my grubby little hands on the Audi e-tron GT. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a proper walkthrough of what many have dubbed to be the Porsche Taycan's more handsome twin from Ingolstadt. The Audi e-tron GT and the Porsche Taycan are actually the same car underneath because they share the same platform and the same EV architecture. But beyond which, it's very obvious to see that the Audi e-tron GT is actually a very different car than the Polka mentioned. Okay, specifically what we have on test here is the e-tron GT with dynamic package, and you can probably tell for yourself that the e-tron GT looks absolutely nothing like its Porsche twin mentioned. In fact, some argue the e-tron looks more masculine and much more handsome than the Porsche mentioned, and I somewhat agree with that sentiment. More so given the fact that when you notice some of the nice touches present, like this lovely contrasting gloss black exterior accent present, and typical of Audi, this model comes equipped with the brand's signature matrix LED headlights with laser-like technology. Yes, folks, these headlights literally shoot laser beams, and when you drive at night, the way these headlights light up the road and signboards is nothing short of spectacular. The same sentiment applies to the way the headlights actually start up. It has its own animation, and Audi literally wrote the playbook when it comes to sequential turn signals, and this model has them too, and it looks fantastic. I'm going to show it to you right now. Okay, as for rolling stock, the Audi e-tron GT Quattro with dynamic package we are testing rolls on some very tasty looking 20-inch two-tone aerodynamic wheels, and as you can see, they are massive, but given the dimensions of this car, they are quite fitting if you ask me. What's more important though is what lies behind the wheels, because the dynamic package doesn't just add this very tasty red painted brake caliper, it also adds a special carbide tungsten coating on the brake rotors, and this promises a slightly crisper and better bite when it comes to stopping power. Now, one lovely touch present in the e-tron GT2 is this carbon fiber roof, and as we move to the rear quarter, you'll note that it has a very swoopy and aerodynamic rear end, just like its Taycan twin mentioned. However, unlike said Porsche, it's a lot more masculine, a lot more handsome here thanks to the wider, taller and much more pronounced shoulders above the rear wheel arch. However, that pales in comparison to the real actual party trick of the rear end, which is the taillights. Like the headlights, they're all LED, they feature Audi's signature sequential turn signals, and they also feature their own startup animation, the theatrics for which looks utterly fantastic at night. And now we move into the cabin of the e-tron GT Quattro. There's a lot I could say about it, but I'm just going to boil things down to 3 things I like and 3 things I don't, starting with the latter. First and foremost, despite the fact that this is the Porsche Taycan's twin, they have very starkly different interiors. And I will have to admit, the wow factor for the cabin in this car is a bit on the low side, more so when you take into account that it has the same digital displays and the same switchgear that you will find in most other contemporary Audi models. So I think if you're looking for wow factor, you're better off with its Porsche twin. Secondly, this center storage bin, which is where the wireless smartphone charging pad and USB-C charge ports are. I'm glad that it's present, but I'm also disappointed at its size because it's pretty much useless, more so if you have a plus-size phone like I do, because when you have a plus-size phone, you can't use the wireless charging pad and close the flap. Annoyingly too, it takes a while for you to fiddle with the cabling if you want to use the USB-C charge ports and to close it properly. In fact, it's so annoying, I just end up leaving my phone out here in this open port most of the time. Now, the third most annoying thing about the e-tron GT is born out of its sporty, swoopy roofline, and the price you pay for that, besides the trade-off in rear passenger headroom, is poor rear visibility. In fact, all I see in my rear view mirror here is a letterbox that I could barely see anything out of, and I think this is a missed opportunity because Audi could have equipped a digital rear view mirror here, but thankfully Audi still gave you a solution to it, which is a 360-degree parking camera. And now we move on to 3 things I like about the Audi e-tron GT Quattro's cabin. Firstly, it makes up for the lack of wow factor here by being very, very posh and very typically Audi here through its monochromatic looks and its rich use of very plush soft leather, Alcantara, high-end plastics in the dash, as well as very tasty looking piano black accents in the dash as well as the center stack. Secondly, the amount of tech and creature comforts here are impressive. Again, this is something you typically expect out of the Audi brand, and I'm not just talking about the digital displays I mentioned earlier, which by the way offers wireless Apple CarPlay connectivity and comes with a heads-up display. There are other things like keyless entry and ignition, as well as tri-zone automatic air conditioning, and my favorite, 3-level seat ventilation. And this is very perfect on a hot day like today because it just makes life in the cabin of this sporty saloon not more comfortable. Last but not least, in the case of this variant equipped with a dynamic package, said package also adds a thumpy 3D surround audio system from Bang & Olufsen in the cabin. In short, if you want to layan your tunes in this car, it's a joy, folks. Okay, before we get into the drive dynamics, let's understand a little bit about the e-tron GT Quattro's EV architecture because like the Taycan, it shares the same 93.4 kilowatt-hour liquid-cooled lithium-ion battery pack, but unlike most other EVs, Audi's gives you not 1 but 2 charging flaps, and in the case of the e-tron GT, they're both present in the front quarter panel starting with the right side here, which gives you access to an AC charging port, whereas the left side panel, you'll find both an AC and DC charging port here instead. Now, it's worth noting if you opt for the e-tron GT Quattro with dynamic package as tested, the latter package also adds a faster 22 kilowatt AC onboard charger. With that, full recharges takes just 4 hours as opposed to 9 hours at 11 kilowatts. In terms of DC charging, Audi says the e-tron GT Quattro can accept up to 270 kilowatts. That's mad. Now, if you do find a DCFC that dispenses that rapid of a charging speed, you'll be able to attain 5 to 80% in just 22.5 minutes. Okay, enough with the details. Let's find out the most important question. How does the e-tron GT drive? Let's find out. Alright, driving the Audi e-tron GT Quattro. Now, before I get into the things I like and things I don't, let me give you the headlining facts and figures. First and foremost, dual motor all-wheel drive, or quattro if you prefer, and it generates up to 470 horsepower and 630 Newton meters of torque, or should you put this thing into boost mode, those outputs raise up to 523 horsepower and 640 Newton meters of torque. As a result, in boost mode, the e-tron GT Quattro will sprint from 0 to 100 km in just 4.1 seconds, and that could shame quite a lot of sports cars out there, and let's see how thrilling and how fun that looks like. Okay, let's align the car safely. Remember folks, don't try this at home. This is a closed course with a professional idiot at the wheel. Okay, 0 to 100, 3, 2, 1. Whoa, that was quick! Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the e-tron GT Quattro is respectably rapid. Alright, the next important fact you need to know. Maximum range on a full charge. According to Audi, the e-tron GT Quattro as tested will do anywhere between 458 kilometers to 502 kilometers based on the WLTP standards, and truth be told, those are very respectable figures for any EV in our market today. Alright folks, 3 things I love about driving the Audi e-tron GT Quattro. First and foremost, it's very predictable, very obvious. It is rapidly quick, lightning fast, and the fact that I could shame quite a number of combustion sports cars in the 0 to 100 sprint on the daily with this thing without emitting any CO2 is quite a huge guilty pleasure for me, and that is quite a thrill, but this is something you'd expect out of any performance premium EV in the market today. Secondly, now if you put this thing into comfort mode, it feels like a proper GT. It's so smooth, it glides over undulations and bumps easily, and it just feels like it can go on for miles and miles, and I just love the way it drives in that mode. And that is quite a big credit to this car, given the fact that it does not have adaptive air suspension. Instead, it only makes do with clever adaptive dampers. Thirdly, what I love about driving the e-tron GT Quattro is how the dynamic mode feels, and you could almost feel like this is slightly better than the Taycan in dynamic mode, because it feels very sprightly. It could carve corners for days, and the Quattro all-wheel drive system just gives tremendous level of traction and grip when needed. Unfortunately, no package is perfect, and now it's the part of the video where I give you 3 things I don't like about driving the Audi e-tron GT Quattro. First and foremost, as mentioned, it doesn't have the clever adaptive air suspension that's exclusive to the RS model, and I think that's a shame, because this car, this chassis deserves it, and I suspect with that equipment present, it will make this car a lot easier, a lot more comfortable, a lot nicer to drive realistically for the daily. Secondly, and this is perhaps quite annoying for most people looking at this car, you know this car will never be as quick as a Taycan. And that becomes very apparent should you be in the shoes like mine, where you've experienced the Taycan prior, and should you drive this car back to back, the difference is quite noticeable. But for those who haven't driven the Taycan and you drive this car for the first time, you won't be able to notice that. So I guess this is not such a huge deal breaker, but the next fact might be. Now, the third thing I don't like about driving this car is how unbelievably wide it actually feels and sits, and it becomes quite daunting and quite challenging should you drive this car through the denser parts of the Golden Triangle of Kuala Lumpur, more so if you have to navigate this car through a very, very tight parking lot. Now, that can be a very stressful affair, and I guess that's one of the things that just makes this car a little for me. But otherwise, overall, this is fantastic GT, and it's quite the EV as well. So if you happen to have 670,000 to 690,000 to spare and you think the Taycan is overrated, well, the Audi e-tron GT is quite a handsome alternative indeed. And that's basically everything I can tell you about the Audi e-tron GT Quattro with dynamic package as tested. Definitely a much better looking car than its Porsche twin, and that's despite the fact that it lags a little bit of the performance department and wow factor department against said twin from Stuttgart. However, Haus Ingolstadt hasn't disappointed thus far, and the fact that this costs lesser than said Porsche twin just makes this sports saloon that much more appealing. Well, that's just my take on things. What do you think of the Audi e-tron GT Quattro then? Hit the comments below with your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and as always, visit caricarz.com/news for more.